The moment I stepped into my new house, I couldn't contain my excitement. Sure, it wasn't elaborate, just a modern two-bedroom with minimalist design and clean lines, but it was mine. After 10 years of pouring my heart into web development and app creation, I finally had a space to call my own. Finally, my sanctuary, I whispered, savoring how the words felt. I'm Allison Harper, 34 years old, and as of today, a homeowner. I kept everything secret from my family, not because I didn't want to share my joy, but because I wanted to witness their reactions firsthand. Especially my parents, who'd been suggesting for years that I should find stability like my younger sister Brianna had. Brianna, the golden child. At 30, she had the picture-perfect husband Ryan who worked in marketing, and their adorable 4-year-old Zoe. They lived in a luxurious rental condominium in one of those upscale neighborhoods with manicured lawns and security gates. My parents practically treated their every word as gospel. My stomach tightened as I checked my watch. I promised to be at my parents' house by 6 o'clock for our monthly family dinner. This time though, I had achievements to share that no one could diminish, or so I hoped. The drive to my childhood home took exactly 15 minutes. I noticed Brianna's gleaming SUV already parked in the driveway. I was late as usual, but tonight, I refused to let anything crush my spirits. There she is, my dad called when I entered. He was lounging in his worn recliner, beer in hand, eyes glued to some sports game on TV. Hi Dad, I said, leaning down to kiss his weathered cheek. Mom appeared from the kitchen. Allison honey, we're almost ready. Brianna brought her special quinoa salad that everyone loves. I made my way to the kitchen where Brianna was artfully arranging food on an expensive-looking platter. She barely glanced up. Oh, hey Allison. Her attention immediately returned to her culinary creation, her manicured nails adjusting each element perfectly. Need any help? I offered, though I already knew the answer. No, I've got everything under control, Brianna replied without looking up. Mom, did you remember to chill that imported white wine I brought? Of course, darling. The one you brought last time was exquisite. I bought 2 bottles, Mom said, beaming at Brianna with unmistakable pride. I stood there feeling like a ghost, invisible as always in my sister's radiant presence. When we settled around the dining table, Brianna dominated the conversation, gushing about Ryan's recent promotion at work. They're making him department head, she announced proudly. With a substantial raise. We're thinking of upgrading our condo soon to something more befitting our status. My parents nodded with obvious approval. Ryan shifted uncomfortably but remained silent. That's wonderful, Mom gushed. You deserve an even nicer place, especially with Zoe growing so quickly. Seeing my opportunity, I took a deep breath. Actually, I have some news too. Everyone turned to me with tepid interest. I bought a house, I said, unable to suppress my excitement. Got the keys today. It's not enormous, but it's in a lovely, peaceful neighborhood. The table fell silent. Dad's fork froze midway to his mouth. Brianna stared at me as though I'd announced I was moving to Mars. You bought a house? Mom finally asked. Why didn't you tell us you were looking? I wanted it to be a surprise, I explained, my smile faltering at their lukewarm reactions. Dad set his fork down with a clatter. Allison, why would you make such a significant decision without consulting us? Your sister needs proper housing more than you do. I blinked, confusion washing over me. What? Well, Brianna and Ryan are renting, and with Zoe, they need more space, Mom explained condescendingly. You're just one person with all those computers. My heart sank like a stone. I purchased the house with my own money. I've been saving for years from my app development work. Still, Dad said, shaking his head disapprovingly. Family helps family. You should have discussed this with us first. Brianna's lips tightened into a thin line. So where exactly is this house? What's it like? It's on Oakwood Drive, I said, my voice growing rigid. It's modest but nice. You're all welcome to come see it tomorrow if you'd like. I wrote my new address on a napkin and handed it to her. The remainder of dinner passed in strained conversation, with Brianna reverting to discussing Ryan's promotion and their grandiose plans. No one asked anything more about my house. As I drove home that night, the elation I'd felt earlier had considerably diminished. I'd anticipated congratulations, perhaps even a celebration toast. Instead, I'd received disapproval and the distinct impression that I'd somehow committed a transgression by purchasing myself a home. The next day, I spent the morning meticulously preparing for my family's visit. I baked an apple pie, Mom's favorite, and ensured everything looked as presentable as possible despite my still-in-progress decorating. At exactly 2 o'clock, the doorbell chimed. Brianna was the first to enter, her critical gaze scanning everything with barely concealed judgment. Mom and Dad followed, with Ryan trailing behind carrying Zoe. "It's cozy," Mom remarked, which I recognized as her polite euphemism for cramped. "The kitchen needs updating," Brianna commented, running her manicured finger along my countertop as if checking for dust. "I'm planning to renovate eventually," I replied, struggling to maintain my enthusiasm. "I just need to save a bit more after the down payment." Brianna pulled out her phone and began taking pictures. "Just want to examine everything in detail later," she explained with a smile that never reached her eyes. We toured the entire house, which admittedly didn't take long. With each room, their expressions grew increasingly smug, as if my modest home confirmed some long-held suspicion about me. "Well," Dad commented when we finished in the second bedroom, which I'd set up as my workspace with dual monitors, "it's basic, but it'll suffice for you alone with your computer stuff." "Thanks, Dad," I responded flatly, hiding my disappointment. "We should leave now," Mom announced, checking her watch. "Zoe needs her nap." "But I made pie. Won't you stay for a slice?" "Perhaps another time," Brianna interjected, already ushering everyone toward the exit. "Zoe gets irritable if she misses her nap schedule." And just like that, they departed. No congratulations, no housewarming gift, not even a courtesy slice of the pie I'd baked especially for them. I stood in my living room after they left, surveying my little house. It might not be as luxurious as Brianna's rental, but it was mine, and despite my family's reaction, I felt a surge of pride in my achievement. The next few weeks passed quickly as I immersed myself in transforming my house into a home. While a complete renovation wasn't in my budget, I managed to paint the walls a warm beige, replace the worn flooring with affordable laminate, and update the kitchen hardware. I even discovered a perfect second-hand dining table at a local thrift store that fit beautifully in my breakfast nook. My family had barely communicated with me since their brief visit. Mom called once to check in, but the conversation felt strained, and she devoted most of it discussing Brianna and Zoe. I avoided mentioning my house again. November was drawing to a close, and with Thanksgiving approaching, I had an inspiration. I'd host the family Thanksgiving dinner at my place this year. It would serve as the perfect housewarming too, and perhaps once they saw my improvements, they might show more support. I decided to propose this at our next family gathering. Walking into my parents' house that evening, I felt hopeful and enthusiastic. Dinner followed its usual pattern, Brianna commanding the conversation while my parents nodded with admiration. I waited for a pause, then cleared my throat. "I've been thinking. Thanksgiving is coming up soon, and I'd love to host it at my place this year. It could double as a housewarming celebration." A brief silence followed, then Brianna laughed. Not a polite chuckle, but a full, dismissive laugh that cut through me like ice. "Nobody is going to come to your place for Thanksgiving," she stated flatly. "Everyone's coming to our house like always." I stared at her, stunned. "What? But I haven't even hosted once. It's unfair that you get to have it every year." Brianna rolled her eyes dramatically. "Allison, be realistic. Your house is tiny and uncomfortable. Mine is professionally decorated with plenty of space for everyone." I looked to my parents for support, but Mom was nodding in agreement with Brianna. "Honey, Brianna's house is much more suitable for entertaining," Mom said. "It's larger, more comfortable, and frankly, Brianna has better taste than you do. Besides, we're celebrating her promotion too." The words struck me like a physical blow. I sat there, speechless as they continued planning Thanksgiving as if I hadn't spoken at all. They decided on the menu, assigned dishes, and even arranged the seating, all for Brianna's house. I couldn't tolerate it anymore. I pushed back my chair and stood up. No one attempted to stop me. No one followed me to the door. I heard their conversation resume before I'd even left the dining room. The drive home passed in a haze. I kept hearing Mom's words, "Brianna has better taste than you do," echoing in my mind, as if that somehow justified dismissing me and ignoring my wishes completely. When I arrived home, I wandered through each room slowly, examining everything I'd accomplished, the freshly painted walls, the hand-sewn curtains, the bathroom vanity I'd stripped and refinished myself. True, it wasn't professionally designed like Brianna's rental, but it was mine, created through my own vision and effort. That's when I made my decision. I wouldn't back down. I deserved to host Thanksgiving just as much as Brianna did. I settled at my computer, launched my social media account, and began typing. "Exciting news, everyone. I'm hosting Thanksgiving at my new home this year. It'll double as a housewarming since many of you haven't seen my place yet. Food, drinks, and holiday cheer provided, just bring yourselves and your festive spirit. Details coming soon, but save the date for November 24th at 2 p.m. I published the post before doubt could creep in. Within minutes, comments started appearing. Congratulations on the new house, Allison. Looking forward to seeing it, wrote my cousin Elena. I had no idea you bought a place. That's fantastic news. Count us in, replied my Uncle Philip and Aunt Jacqueline. So proud of you, Allison. First-time homeowner. We'll bring the wine, commented my college friend Madeline, who'd remained close through the years. The supportive responses lifted my spirits. Perhaps my immediate family didn't value my accomplishment, but others certainly did. I went to bed feeling somewhat vindicated. The following morning, my phone buzzed with a notification. Brianna had published a new post. Curious, I opened it and felt my stomach clench painfully. Thanksgiving at our house this year. For those trying to decide where to celebrate, here's a helpful comparison of the options. Below her text were side-by-side images of her condo and my house. Her photos showcased her spacious, professionally decorated living room with its vaulted ceiling and marble fireplace. Beside it was the unflattering photo she'd captured during her visit, before I'd painted or updated anything. Where would you rather spend Thanksgiving? Her caption read. Vote in the comments. I scrolled down, feeling nauseated. Some relatives had refused to participate in her juvenile poll, with Elena even commenting, "Not cool, Brianna. Both homes are lovely in their own way." But others had chimed in with remarks like, "Brianna's place looks spectacular." No comparison. Worst of all were my parents' likes on the post. Mom had even commented, "Brianna's house is ideal for entertaining. Her taste is exquisite, and we're excited to celebrate her promotion there." I set my phone down, my hands trembling with rage and hurt. This wasn't merely petty, it was deliberately cruel. And my parents were actively encouraging it. As I sat processing this betrayal, another realization struck me, something I'd been avoiding for far too long. I opened my banking app and navigated to the scheduled payments section. There it was, monthly transfer to Brianna Harper, $3,500, condo, plus $850, car payment. Next payment in 14 days. For 3 years, I'd been paying Brianna's rent and car payment. It had started when Ryan's startup failed, leaving them with significant debt, and Brianna and my parents had implored me to help. I'd suggested they relocate to somewhere more affordable, but Brianna had insisted her place was perfect, especially for Zoe. So I'd agreed to help temporarily. But even after Ryan secured a better paying position, I'd continued paying, partly from habit and partly because no one mentioned stopping. Now, examining the scheduled transfer, I realized what a fool I'd been. While I'd been saving diligently for my modest house, I'd been financing Brianna's lavish lifestyle, the very lifestyle she was now using to humiliate me. With newfound determination, I canceled the transfer. Then I prepared myself a cup of coffee and sat on my porch, feeling lighter than I had in years. 2 weeks passed as I focused on preparations for my Thanksgiving gathering. I'd received confirmations from several relatives and friends, and I was thrilled to show them my home. The RSVPs were primarily from supportive relatives who had criticized Brianna's post and friends who had consistently supported me. I was compiling a grocery list when my phone rang. Brianna's name flashed on the screen. I nearly ignored it, but curiosity won out. "Hello? What the hell, Allison?" Brianna's voice was piercing. "The rent and car payments didn't go through. We need to pay by tomorrow, or we'll get hit with late fees." I inhaled deeply. I canceled the transfers. "You what?" She practically shrieked. "How could you do that without telling me? We need that money." "Brianna," I replied calmly, "I've been paying your rent and car payments for 3 years now. Ryan has had a stable job for ages, and now he's even been promoted. You don't need my financial support anymore." "Of course we need your help." Her voice carried that entitled whine I'd grown to detest. "We have countless expenses, Zoe's private preschool, our vacation plans, and now we're organizing this elaborate Thanksgiving celebration for my promotion. We were counting on you." I laughed humorlessly. "Right, the Thanksgiving party you're throwing specifically to undermine me? The one where you're showcasing the condo I've been financing? That's completely unfair. You're just jealous because you live in that tiny dump while I have a beautiful home." "A beautiful home you clearly can't afford," I countered. "Listen, Brianna, I have my own mortgage now. I can't continue subsidizing your lifestyle, especially when you've made my standing with you abundantly clear. You and Ryan need to cover your own expenses from now on. But, she began. No, I interrupted firmly. You showed me exactly where I stand with that social media post. Consider my financial assistance officially terminated. Goodbye, Brianna. I ended the call. My phone immediately started ringing again. Brianna. I declined. Then Mom called, then Dad. I declined them all and silenced my phone. 10 minutes later, text messages began flooding in. Mom, Allison, call us immediately. Brianna is absolutely distraught. Dad, this isn't how we raised you to behave. Family helps family. Brianna, you've destroyed everything. How are we supposed to pay rent and host Thanksgiving for my promotion now? You're doing this deliberately to ruin my special day. I ignored all messages, turned off my phone, and returned to my Thanksgiving planning. The following day, I turned my phone back on to discover more messages and missed calls. I deleted everything without reading them and went to work. When I arrived home that evening, I was startled to find Brianna's SUV parked in my driveway with my parents' car behind it. They were all standing on my porch, expressions furious. I deliberately took my time exiting my car and approaching them. Finally, Brianna snapped, "We've been waiting for 30 minutes. I don't recall inviting you," I stated simply. Allison, Mom began, her tone stern as if addressing a disobedient child, "We need to discuss this absurd decision you've made." There's nothing to discuss, I replied. I'm no longer paying Brianna's expenses. But we had an arrangement, Brianna insisted. An arrangement that was intended to be temporary. 3 years ago, I emphasized. Ryan has a good job now. You two can manage your own finances. We were counting on that money for my promotion celebration, Brianna insisted. Now we'll have to scale back everything. Not my concern, I said, moving to unlock my door. Brianna blocked my path. You can't just abandon your responsibilities like this. My responsibilities? I laughed incredulously. Since when is financing your lifestyle my responsibility? Since you agreed to help us, Dad interjected. You can't just change your mind. Actually, I can, I stated firmly. And I have. Now please leave. This discussion is over. Allison, be reasonable, Mom pleaded. Your sister needs that condo. Zoe loves it there. Can't you think about someone besides yourself for once? That was rich coming from them. I have been thinking about others, specifically Brianna, for years. I've been paying her expenses while saving for my own house. Now that I have a mortgage, I simply cannot afford to keep bankrolling her lifestyle. That's all there is to it. Their shocked expressions would have been amusing if the situation weren't so tragic. They genuinely believed they could intimidate me into continuing to pay Brianna's expenses, even after their appalling treatment. I think you should go now, I said, moving around Brianna to my door. I have work to do. I went inside and closed the door. Through the window, I watched them standing there, looking stunned. Eventually, they departed, but not before Brianna vengefully kicked over one of my potted plants. After they left, I carefully gathered the plant, repotted it, and returned it to my doorstep. It was damaged but would recover, rather like myself. Over the following days, I continued receiving angry messages and calls. I blocked their numbers. I needed distance, and I refused to let them sabotage my Thanksgiving plans. Cousin Elena called to inform me that Brianna had canceled her Thanksgiving celebration, claiming they needed to use the money for rent instead. She was portraying herself as the victim, making it sound as if I'd left them penniless. I merely laughed. As Thanksgiving approached, I purchased decorations, planned my menu, and thoroughly cleaned the house. Several relatives called to confirm they were coming, including Uncle Philip and Aunt Jacqueline, who had always shown me genuine kindness. My friend Madeline offered to arrive early to help with preparations. The day before Thanksgiving, I set up my autumn decorations, a beautiful centerpiece with gourds and fall flowers that complemented my dining area perfectly. I arranged the homemade bread and pies I'd prepared and stepped back to appreciate the effect. My modest house looked warm, welcoming, and festive. Thanksgiving Day arrived with a crisp autumn breeze that made my little house feel especially cozy. Madeline appeared at noon, just as I was checking on the turkey. This place looks incredible, Allison, she exclaimed, admiring the decorations. I can't believe how much you've accomplished in such a short time. Thanks, I replied, giving her a quick embrace. It's not extravagant, but it's home. We spent the next hour applying finishing touches to the food and setting the table. By 2 o'clock, the first guests arrived, Uncle Philip and Aunt Jacqueline, carrying a bottle of wine and a beautiful potted chrysanthemum. Housewarming gift, Aunt Jacqueline explained, presenting me with the plant. May it flourish alongside your happiness in this home. More relatives and friends arrived steadily until my modest living room was pleasantly filled with people conversing, laughing, and admiring my house. Everyone brought small gifts or dishes to share, creating a warm and festive atmosphere. No one mentioned Brianna or my parents, though I noticed occasional sympathetic glances from those aware of the situation. At 5 o'clock, just as we were preparing to sit for dinner, my phone vibrated with a text. It was from Mom. Happy Thanksgiving, Allison. We miss you. Please join us tonight for dessert. I stared at the message, feeling conflicted. Part of me wanted to ignore it, while another wondered if this was a peace offering. I responded, Happy Thanksgiving to you too. I'm sorry, but I'm not ready to see you, Dad, or Brianna yet. Perhaps in the new year. I set my phone aside and rejoined my guests. If Mom was disappointed by my response, she didn't message again. Dinner was a complete success. Everyone praised the food, and conversation flowed naturally. People moved comfortably throughout my small house, relaxing on the new sofa I'd splurged on or gathering around the dining table. No one seemed to find the space inadequate or poorly decorated. You've created something truly special here, Allison, Elena remarked as she helped clear plates after dessert. It genuinely feels like a home. Thank you, I said, genuinely moved. That means everything to me. After everyone had departed and I was washing the final dishes, the doorbell chimed. Assuming someone had forgotten something, I opened the door without checking. A delivery person stood there with 4 wrapped packages. Delivery for Allison Harper, he announced. I didn't order anything, I replied, puzzled. They're gifts, he explained. From the Harper family. My parents and Brianna. I examined the tags, confirming my suspicion. I can't accept these, I stated firmly. Please return them to the senders. The delivery person looked uncomfortable. Ma'am, I'm just doing my job. I understand, I responded, but I'm declining the delivery. Please take them back. After a brief disagreement, he finally departed with the packages still in hand. I didn't know what those boxes contained, and I didn't want to know. Accepting gifts now felt like surrendering, like pretending everything was resolved when it wasn't. The following morning, I awakened feeling freer than I had in years. My house was peaceful but still radiated the warmth of yesterday's celebration. I brewed coffee and settled in my living room, appreciating my autumn decorations while reflecting on the recent months. Purchasing this house had exposed so much about my family dynamics that I'd previously overlooked, how they dismissed my achievements, expected me to sacrifice for Brianna without recognition, and consistently treated me as an afterthought in their plans. Breaking this pattern had been difficult but essential. For the first time in my adult life, I felt I was living authentically for myself, not merely existing to support others' ambitions. 2 months passed. Winter arrived and brought the holiday season. Through family connections, I learned that Brianna and Ryan were searching for a less expensive condominium. Apparently, she had accepted a part-time position at a local marketing agency to help cover their housing expenses. Mom had called several times, leaving messages that alternated between guilt-inducing remarks and hesitant reconciliation attempts. I wasn't prepared to respond yet. With the funds saved by no longer covering Brianna's expenses, I comfortably managed my mortgage payments and even established a renovation fund for my home office. I spent weekends exploring my neighborhood, joining a local tech meetup group, and enjoying dinners with friends. One Saturday, while working at a neighborhood cafe, I encountered a man who lived nearby. Noah was a graphic designer with expressive eyes and a genuine smile. We conversed for hours, and when he suggested dinner the following weekend, I accepted without hesitation. Our first date led naturally to a second, then a third. He showed genuine appreciation for my modest house when he visited for dinner. In fact, he admired the improvements I'd made. He listened attentively when I shared my family situation, offering support without criticism. As winter transformed into spring, I found myself contemplating Brianna and my parents less frequently. The pain remained, but had diminished to a dull ache rather than sharp distress. I was too engaged in my life, developing new apps, dating Noah, transforming my house into a true home, to dwell on past grievances. Sometimes, sitting on my porch in the evening watching stars appear with Noah beside me, I would consider next Thanksgiving. Perhaps by then I'd be ready to reconnect with my family. Perhaps not. Either way, I knew I would thrive. My modest house had provided more than just shelter. It had given me courage to advocate for myself, recognize my inherent value, and construct a life authentically mine. No mortgage payment could possibly be excessive for such profound freedom.